The Dual Enhanced View Optic, or D-EVO, is an offset low-profile 6x prism from Leupold. This thing was designed to run in conjunction with their LCO.
Pew pew! Pew pew!
But instead I'm running it with an EXPS 3-0
Pew pew! Pew pew!
from EOTech. The concept behind this thing is quite simple. Have it mounted behind a red dot or holographic sight such as this in front, and you have a 1x looking through the red dot or holographic, and then a 6x prism all in the same line of sight. It's a very weird and wild concept, and something
Pew pew!
that really does manage to work, but not without its limitations and flaws, which we will be talking about very soon.
Pew pew!
If you've never personally gotten behind a D-EVO before, it's quite wild to have it be perfectly lined up in front of you.
Pew pew! Pew pew!
It is a little hard getting used to it, but once you get it all figured out and working for you just right, it is something that can and will work. But again, not without some shortcomings. But before we get into that, let's do a real quick physical overview, and then we'll get behind this thing a little bit further.
Pew pew! Pew pew!
Another question that we're going to be looking to answer by the end of this video is, who is this going to be for? Because I feel that the market for this thing is extremely narrow. You have to need this in order to really get the full benefit of it. It's not going to be for someone that's like, you know what, I kind of want a 1x and like a 6x, and I don't want to run a magnifier or an LPVO or a 6x prism that's going to be my main optic and a little piggyback red dot up on top. This isn't going to be for you, and you'll see why by the end of this video more than likely. First things first, this thing looks absolutely wild. Because it's an offset prism, to have it work properly, the objective lens has to look around the optic in front of it. So it's off to the side by a very large margin. That means that inside you have the objective lens where the light comes in, it zigzags inside with a bunch of mirrors, and then it comes right back and shoots out the objective lens and into your eye. There are very few controls on this thing. And when I mean very few, I mean all it's got is windage and elevation. That is it. This does not have any sort of illumination. It does not have any sort of eyepiece in the rear to adjust the diopter to your eye. It's got nothing. Zilp. Not a zilch. Now, for many of you, that's going to be a good thing. Fewer moving components means that there's less likely things to break inside, and it should be pretty durable. And I haven't really heard of many people having problems with these. In hand, it does feel quite substantial. It does feel really robust and well put together, and it's made of really good components. These are made in the USA from all things that I can figure, and they do come with a hefty price premium as a result. I believe their street price was around $1,300 and their MSRP was closer to $2,000. Now on the used market, you could expect to pay $900 for one of these, and that is a pretty big chunk of change. Speaking of chunks, it also comes in just shy of 14 ounces on my scale, which is pretty damn heavy. Again, it feels really good in hand, and sometimes good in weight go together, but comparing it to a 5X SLX primary arms microprism, that thing's almost 4 ounces lighter. So this thing is not the be-all end-all for a lightweight build. There really isn't anything else to talk about it physically, so let's get behind it and talk about the reticle. The CMR-W reticle is a BDC wind hold/ranging reticle. Even though this is only a 6X and the window does seem a little bit on the smaller side, it is packed with a lot of information. However, you might notice that the center dot on our aforementioned 0 all the way down to 600 yards looks like it's not perfectly lined up vertically. That is because it is not. That's right, because this thing is an offset prism, the objective lens is farther off to the side, you are not looking directly in line with the barrel, so nothing is going to be a straight line. As you are holding out at greater distances, you're going to have to hold technically slightly over to compensate the angle at which the prism is currently lined up. Yes, very weird, I know. Another thing that I must show you is going to be the exit pupil. This thing is very hard to get behind if you're not perfectly 100% behind it. As you can clearly see here, by shifting the camera side to side and up and down, it gets real dark real quick. Doing a tracking test on this thing was a little bit challenging. However, we can very easily see what kind of slop there is to the erectors. On the windage, there's just about a click of slop, which really isn't that bad. I have seen much worse, but I have seen a perfect performance. This is not it. Again, this has been used, this has been handed down to multiple different people over the years. So a little bit of play in the erector is not uncommon or even unexpected. The elevation performs exactly the same way. There's about a click of slop going between up and down. So if you're making an adjustment going up and then you have to go back, that first click going back is going to be basically dead space. However, when I do bring it up 10 full mils, you can see that center dot stays exactly in line with my target, so at least everything is lined up properly on the inside. Ah, my former living room window. How I miss you so. Having a beautiful, wonderful, complicated target to focus on at 400 yards was an absolute joy of joys. So let's focus on that brick building behind the D-EVO. You can see, again, that I am going to showcase you just how tight this thing's exit pupil is. The eyebox on this thing is very, very small. I could not find any proper information or specs as far as what the exit pupil actually is in millimeters, but I can tell you from my personal experience, it is very small. At least as small as what a second focal plane LPVO would be on 6X, if not smaller. The 20mm objective size does not help. Plus, I'm sure that weird shape that they put to the glass so this way you could actually see over it doesn't help either. With those criticisms out of the way, however, this thing does produce a very sharp and clear looking image. There is a very minor amount of brightness loss, again because of how complicated the inside is on this thing, but it is very sharp and clear from 30 yards on this power transformer basically out to infinity. This thing really does perform wonderfully optics-wise, but most Leupolds that I've gotten behind in recent history have performed extremely well as well. That is nice to know that at least if you're spending even the $900 on the used market for one of these, optically it's going to perform quite well, at least here in very bright sunny conditions. But see, I plan on using this thing while hunting. Well, you're going to be in for a bit of a struggle. Granted, I did film this a little bit later than I would have liked. You can see when we're looking up at the sky, it does have a very good amount of light that's coming through it. The sky looking through the optic and the sky looking above the optic are pretty similar. Colors are definitely a little bit more muted, so you're going to lose that. But the biggest thing is if you're looking into the shadowy area somewhere, you're going to lose the reticle more than likely. And because it's not illuminated, you can't pick that thing up worth a damn when it's too dark. Again, I did film with this a little bit darker than I would have liked, but nevertheless, it's still going to be hard and challenging in lower light conditions. Coming back out into the sun and putting the EXPS3 back in front of this thing, and you will really start to get a good sense of what Leupold was trying to accomplish with this. You have the exact same cheek weld to properly look through your red dot sight in front and through this D-EVO. So this way, you don't have to worry about changing anything. Not your hand position, not your head position, nothing. You could look through the gun as you normally would in a vertical orientation such as this and be able to look through both your holographic sight and your 6X prism. The concept is really cool and it does work, but it is very limited. Not only because we have a very small, tight exit pupil coming through this thing, but you have to maintain a very good cheek weld as a result. Now, it's true, you should be maintaining a good cheek weld all the time, but if you're shooting in a more dynamic environment, you might not be able to not only keep your cheek on the buttstock properly, but you might not be able to keep the gun vertically either. And if this gun has to get canted at all, you're going to have a substantially harder time getting behind that D-EVO to actually look through it properly. To further reinforce what I'm talking about, let's get behind this thing in a little bit more wacky and wild way. You can get pretty far away from it and still look through it, however, the view really gets small quick. When you're right in the threshold of where you need to be, you best be on that thing flawlessly. Again, I must maintain the proper cheek weld on this thing is extremely, extremely important. And again, if you had to cant your rifle a little bit and look through this thing, God help you. Getting into everybody's favorite segment, the side-by-side comparisons. And the first thing is going to be with the Elcan Specter 1/4. This is a 1x and a 4x prism in one big, beautiful package. These things go for around $2,000 and they come in around 23 ounces. So really not too far off with what the D-EVO would be piggybacked with a holographic sight like an EOTech, for example. But oh no, you might be saying, I have to manually manipulate a lever on the side of the Specter to get it between 1x and 4x. Oh, boo-hoo. This thing has a very good 1x, but an incredible, absolutely incredible 4x. The illumination on it is also among the brightest that I've ever seen. This thing truly is wonderful to get behind. Armament Technologies Incorporated, the company that sent this over for review, they wanted it back within 60 days, and it was about a year since until I gave it back to them. I really didn't want to give it back. It was awesome. I didn't really have an actual proper use for it, but just having it, comparing it with other scopes, and just manipulating every control on this thing was an absolute joy. They are 100% military tested and proven, and for the $2,000 that you're paying for it, I really don't think you're losing that much. However, just like with the D-EVO, it's not going to be for everybody. And even though it is 1x capable, the real star for the Specter is the 4x performance. So who do I recommend the Specter for? Someone that really wants a 4x prism that's excellent with a giant field of view. I mean, giant field of view. Granted, the eye relief is going to be pretty small, but they want a 4x first and a possible 1x second. If you are okay with that, then go with the Specter. You'd have an amazing time. But again, it's a battle-proven optic that's still readily available and is absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's got its own quirks, just like the D-EVO has its own quirks, but it's quirks that all work together to make a very uniform package that will work wonderfully. Next up is going to be another discontinued prism. This time it's the Steiner S432. This thing was basically designed for machine gun use, so it is very large and very, very, very robust. Or at least that's how it feels. That's how it was designed. You could have this on a 22, drop it once, and it shatter into a million pieces. But that is just what you can expect from the S432. Another thing you can expect from the S432, very similar to the Elcan, is a monstrous field of view. Absolutely massive. It's larger than the Elcan. Look at that thing at a 2x crop. It is just insane. It also weighs 25 ounces, but if you are in the market for an S432, you can find them secondhand for around $450, half the price of what you could find the D-EVO. Another cool thing about the S432 is it's just a prism, and it's got cool rails on the outside that you can mount stuff to it if you so choose. Its optical performance truly is sensational. It blows the D-EVO out of the water by 1,000,000%. These are both currently cropped at the exact same 2x crop. And can you tell the difference between these two? I sure as shit can. Not only that, but the view looking through the D-EVO is just so tiny. And even though it's a 6x, it doesn't appear like a 6x. The Steiner is only a 4x, but it looks substantially larger than that. Neither of these prisms are going to be for everybody, but this is again just an example of what you can expect from one thing versus another. Let's say you really do like the prism idea, but you want something that's going to be smaller, lighter, and less expensive. Welcome to the Primary Arms SLX 5X. These go for around $400 and come in at 9 ounces. Now, even though it does not have any sort of proprietary mounting footprint for an offset red dot built on it, you can buy this weird like exoskeleton frame that Primary Arms will sell you that goes in between the mount and the prism that you then can mount a little red dot on top of. It's not the nicest, it's not the most robust, but people do run them, and I haven't really heard many complaints. However, if you want to run an offset red dot in conjunction with one of the Primary Arms SLX micro prisms, you buy an offset mount and you get away with it that way. Optically, between these two, I will give it to the D-EVO. It does have a sharper, crisper looking image, but the SLX has illumination, has a reticle that's still very usable, very similar to what the D-EVO offers, but it's going to be with the price, size, weight, and overall functionality. Despite how simple the SLX lineup of prisms are, it definitely has the leg up over the D-EVO. It's got illumination, it's in a much smaller, lighter package. Yes, they're made in China, but they are very readily available, and they are just a simpler setup to run. Now, if push comes to shove, you could run the D-EVO by itself as a standalone prism, but that's not how it was designed. And if you were to do that, it would be really kind of odd and very, very, very weird. Yeah, it would be really weird. We'll touch on that more in the final thoughts. But between these two, well, if you plan on running a standalone prism, well, it's got to be the SLX. If you plan on running the D-EVO standalone, it's not going to make much sense. However, if you want, again, a really full capacity red dot / holographic sight and then an augmented 6x prism to boot, it's got to be the D-EVO. Again, it's really in a real niche category. All right, you want a 1x and a 6x, why not run an LPVO? The size 6, also from ATI, Armament Technologies Incorporated, is a 1:6 first focal plane LPVO. They come in around $1,300, but only weigh about 18 ounces. It's going to be lighter, or probably on par with a D-EVO, something like an EOTech, and then a mount when you factored in with the size. It's probably going to be neck and neck. But you do have to adjust the magnification. Oh dear, oh my. But you also get good illumination on the side as well. Considering it's a first focal plane scope, it does have its own sort of quirks and things that I'm not the biggest fan of. The reticle is something that I would like to see improved in the future, but if you are planning on using it more in the higher magnifications for extended ranges, then the reticle on the side is truly wonderful. It's only when you have it down here at 1x where it sort of loses a lot of its potency. However, that is one of the only real nitpicks that I could find on it. It's got a wonderful eyebox, it's got excellent glass clarity, it's got incredible build quality, and now SAI is offering lifetime warranties on them. Now, even though, again, these are nowhere near to direct competitors, it's just another concept and form function that you can take over running a D-EVO in line with a holographic sight, let's say. As far as picking a winner between these two, or the D-EVO and anything else, it's all a matter of how you're looking to run your setup. Last but not least, the Vortex Micro 6X magnifier. Let's say you want to run a really nice holographic / red dot sight and have the ability to get quickly a 6x magnified view of it downrange. Well, why not run a magnifier? It's definitely an option. Do I think 6x is a little bit extreme for magnifiers? I do, because the form function of them is typically too small, and as a result, there's going to be some compromises there. Now, granted, I've only really gotten myself behind the Micro 6x. There are a ton of other 5x and 6x magnifiers out there, so I cannot say beyond a reasonable doubt that all 5 and 6x magnifiers are going to perform the exact same way. However, with the Micro 6x from Vortex, it did leave a lot to be desired. Is this again a direct comparison with the D-EVO? No, it is not. It is just another means to an end. You want to have a 1x and a 6x. Running a magnifier behind a holographic sight or a red dot will get you there. It just doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get you there in the best sort of fashion. Picture a taxi ride with a car that's basically falling apart and noxious gas is entering into the cabin and you're just choking to death. Something like that. Again, though, it is another possible means of achieving what the D-EVO is trying to achieve. But who the hell is the D-EVO for? 3-gun shooters. That's who the D-EVO is for. 3-gun shooters. I can't think of another person on the planet that would want to have a giant prism that is permanently affixed to the back of their AR that is offset farther. It sticks off so far. It's almost 3 inches that it sticks off the side of your gun. It sticks off further than most flip to the side magnifiers, but it's permanently attached there. Who else would want to run something like this in conjunction with a big windowed holographic sight like the LCO or an EOTech? 3-gun shooters. Why? Because every half a second counts. And when you can go from a big, beautiful 1x for real close, fast work to a 6x prism that has a wonderful drop reticle, it is going to save you time. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter how heavy it is. It doesn't matter how the function is or the eyebox is. It's going to be good enough. And good enough means that you're going to be able to make a shot downrange and it will hopefully connect. And if not, well, at least the glass on the D-EVO is going to be good enough that you should be able to spot your shots out at distance. Here at 200 yards, it's not that hard to pick up some of the finer details of that target. And if you're shooting into the dirt, it's very easy to spot your shots. The side-by-side comparison segment wasn't showing you direct competitors to this thing, because to my knowledge, there are no other real direct competitors to this thing. Who the hell makes an offset prism like this? Leupold. Leupold really does come out with some really crazy stuff, and then they discontinue it after 2 or 3 years because no one was buying it and it was way too expensive to keep producing. The only people that were probably buying these were A, 3-gun competitors, or B, people that didn't know just how weird and wild this thing was going to be. The concept is strong, it's sound, it makes a lot of sense, and when you do use it in a 3-gun environment, when speed is everything, it does work. But having a 14-ounce optic that's perpetually hanging off the side of your gun that's going to get caught on everything is not my idea of a good time. So hopefully I have clearly answered the question of what is a D-EVO and who is it for. It's not going to be for everybody, but it might just be for you. And with that, a huge thank you to the individual that sent this in for review. I had this for a couple of weeks about a year or so ago, and having it and running it and experimenting with it was quite wonderful. It's because of people like you that I'm able to get my hands on a lot of this stuff, because this is something that I couldn't justify spending my own money on, even if I was going to turn around and sell it. So again, thank you very, very much. And another huge thank you for all of you for staying tuned and watching. Hope to see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Star subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.